Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. This time with a quote by Benjamin Franklin. Once he said, "If you would persuade, you must appeal to interest rather than intellect." What are your ideas on that quote, Peyton? Please share them with us today.
Yeah, this is such an important idea because it's a mistake that I used to make for a long time, is just thinking through the logical side of things, the cold, rational facts, and expecting that to change people's minds. And looking around, we can see how many people do things that are clearly irrational, but they do them nonetheless. This is the way of our species because we're animals, because we are not computers, we're not calculators. And if we try to communicate with people and expect calculations and computations and logical, rational reasoning to appeal to people, we are going to miss the mark most of the time in terms of the effect of our attempts at persuasion. When in reality, we most of the time as humans make decisions off of instincts, off of emotions. Always, really, ultimately, people are, well, maybe not always, but by rule, people are going to do things based off of what they think they should do and what they think is in their best interest. Everybody has certain things that they want. They want to be happy. They want to be respected. They want to be loved. They want to feel safe. And if we are speaking at an intuitive level to these core drives that speak to people, that ultimately our brains are trying to solve for, then we're going to have far, far more success in getting people to understand what we are pushing for, what we are persuading for, than if we just try to lay out cold facts. And so, my heuristic for this is align incentives and then make sure the other person understands that the incentives are aligned. Make sure that this is intuitive and clear, that we are in the same direction after we set it up to where we truly are in the same direction. And that, in my opinion, is a much more effective approach to persuasion and getting on the same side as people than just trying to lay out a logical set of facts and expecting people to resonate with whatever word proof that we might lay out. How do you think about this or use this in your life?
Well, you mentioned that we as humans always think that what is appealing to our interest also is benefiting the whole. And this is is some kind of bias where you think, okay, self-serving is also beneficial for all the people. And talking about Benjamin Franklin, I guess in his book Poor Richard's Almanac, he talked about that the Pennsylvania Public Act to bring public lighting and cleaning the streets and so on. He wanted to persuade the people who had the power to make the decision, not only with, okay, it's good for all the people, but he also used not only the logical arguments for that, but also the arguments for their self-interest. Now it's safer if you walk through to the street because you see the people who maybe want to do you harm or whatever. And that is a great move to augment the logical reasons for the reasons that really touch your heart, that really move you yourself, because sometimes it's in your moral duty to really persuade people and using the self-interest bias so that the whole can be benefited as well. In the example of Benjamin Franklin, I guess Charlie Munger also referred to that as well in his book Poor Charlie's Almanac. That's not his book, but well, a compilation of it. And he talked about a guy who was the advisor of a CEO of a chemical company, and he wanted to say, okay, it's not in our legal duty to really report that to the authority, but it is in our moral duty. And that was something really uncomfortable to advise for. So he gave him something really uncomfortable to do, and so the CEO put it off. And but after an amount of time passed, then the authority was like not happy about the fact that he put it off and put it off. So down went the CEO and with him the advisor. And so uh, now what would have been a more persuasive argument was, hey, if you don't report that, your reputation may get really much damaged and your career will be probably over, and you really want to avoid that. So really put in the work to do the hard stuff and um, to really report to the authorities. And in that, doing the hard stuff is not easy. But if you do the hard stuff, probably you will benefit yourself in the long term. That's why we persuade ourselves when we want to go do a training session or whatever. We know that we will be healthier in the long run when we really lift heavy weights or do some exercise and movement and so on. What are your ideas for training?
Yeah, yeah, it really is the most powerful leveraging in terms of as it relates to why is empathy such a useful skill? Why is empathy actually a practical skill set? This is something that I didn't understand for a while. And then what is more and more clear to me over time is that if we can put ourselves in other people's shoes that think differently than us, that may have different values, that may make different decisions regarding short-term versus long-term trade-offs, that may view their mission in the world in a different way, if we can actually put ourselves in their mindset, in what brings them motivation, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel comfortable, what makes them feel excited, what makes them feel happy, then we have far more power to align ourselves with them. We have far more power to persuade. We have far more power to work together with them and to truly be pulling it from the same rope in the same direction. So you mentioned this human nature importance of, or this human nature desire to not have our reputation tarnished. This is something that's actually really important. If we look at some of the organizations that are the absolute best at persuading people to do things that are not necessarily in their rational best interest, I think about the military, for example. What is common on some of the worst, most painful jobs that you can think of? Prestige. Prestige is really common on these paths that if you actually look at it and run the math on how much you're going to enjoy your life, what's this going to do to your family life and your lifestyle and your long-term happiness and your health and your safety. And you look at the worst trade-offs, the military probably being number one in terms of they make not very much money. They're forced to give up total freedom. They're completely commanded around. They have to go in harm's way. They have to fight. They might have to kill. They'll come back and have a lot of them PTSD. Many of them struggle from addiction and then homelessness and this vicious cycle that follows from it. You have even in the best case scenario, a significant sacrifice of your earning power, of how lateral you are. You're very likely to have challenges in your family life from this, in your marriage, because you're moving around, you're moving away, you're in danger, you're in foreign places. There's high levels of infidelity. You may have to be away from your kids for a while, but these people are honored. These people are given prestige. These people are given status. These people board the airline first. These people get to wear a uniform. These people are saluted. There's holidays about these people. All of the prestige actually speaks at a very deep level to human nature in general. Everybody wants to be high status. We are wired super hard for status. And the same thing is applied at much smaller levels in some of the worst careers that there are. If you look at outside of the military, some of the worst civilian careers. If you look at um, being a being an analyst at Goldman Sachs and an investment banker working 100 hours a week under extremely high stress doing grunt work and actually paid less than a lot of the other investment banks, even though it's the one of the more profitable banks, because you have this name, you have this status, you have this prestige. If you look at what you make as a financial analyst at ESPN versus what you make as a financial analyst at some unsexy, let's say, telecom or oil industry job, you make a lot less because it's a sexier job. It's a better title. It's better status. Same with a lot of other things. People will sacrifice a lot for prestige and for status. People will go to an Ivy League school where the education is really no different and pay $60,000 a year instead of a state school and pay $6,000 a year because it has more status, it has more prestige. You have this title associated with you. People value this immensely. Another way that people make decisions that isn't necessarily cold and rational that we can see very clearly is bias against short-term pain. And this bias against these certain things that cause us to feel friction and overwhelm and confusion. So if I take an action and the action is really overwhelming. I'm not confident that I can succeed in it. It's not clear to me that the cause and effect is going to be immediately positive. The payoff is long term. The payoff is uncertain, and I don't feel like I'm being recognized for doing it, and I feel alone when I do it. Then I'm going to feel very high aversion to this, even if it is in my best, cold, hard, rational, calculated, long term best interest. People fear or there's an intrinsic fear in feeling like you're going to risk failure, feeling like you're going to be alone, feeling like you're going to risk looking dumb. And so we should understand the psychology of this if we want to persuade people to do stuff. You want to make it easy. You want to make the short-term reward really high. You want to make the uncertainty of doing this really low. You want to make sure it's clear how this will benefit them, make it clear how this will benefit their quality of life, how they feel at work, how they feel doing their job, their ease of doing things, their pace of doing things. It must make sense to them. And we cannot, importantly, if somebody is a normal person, normal people do not make super big, chunky, fearful short-term sacrifices for really long-term incentives too. We need to understand not just that, okay, yeah, somebody's incentive is to delay gratification for 5 years and they get a huge payoff that's super better because they're playing long-term games and they took skin in the game and they took risks to do it. Most people don't want to take risks and put skin in the game and make sacrifices for 5 years before they get the reward. And so if you actually want to be persuasive to most people, you need to understand that they're going to think short term or medium term, and you need to make sure that the rewards come short term and that the pain that they have to take short term is reduced as much as possible. The uncertainty and doubt that they feel about this is reduced as much as possible because that causes paralysis. That they feel comfortable taking the first step forward, and then they feel comfortable and clear taking the next step forward, and that these things feel more bite sized as opposed to boiling the ocean, and that they feel confident that this will actually make them feel better, that this will actually improve their life in their terms, how they think about it, how they feel about it, and soon, not long. Because if you ask somebody to make a short term sacrifice that's really painful and chunky for a long term reward, it may be rational, but they are not going to resonate with that, most people. And so just putting ourselves in the shoes of how the people we would like to persuade actually think, how they actually feel, how their emotion system works, how they actually make decisions in real life, not as if they were a computer, but as if they were an embodied living organism that evolved in a totally different environment than the one that we are now in, that didn't make the same calculations, where the survival and fitness rewards were completely different on different timelines, on different scales, with different dynamics, and without compounding, without leverage, without a lot of these things that rule what actually makes something rational now. We can understand that this person is going to make decisions based off of the hardware they got, based off of the brain they got. Everybody is not a calculator. And the sooner we can understand this, the more that we can look for opportunities to give offers that actually resonate with somebody strongly, that actually make them excited to do this, that actually persuade. And if we can do that, if we can get skilled at that, then we can actually have much more leverage in our life. We can play games that actually get a lot of humans, whether they're on our team, whether they're on other teams, whether they're whatever our relationship is with them, third party or friendships or strangers or whatever. We can operate with far more alignment with the people around us if we can bring this level of empathy and understanding and paying attention, feeling somebody out, and responding to the real world signals that we get from what is resonating with somebody and what is not resonating with somebody. And so that's a lot of how I think about persuasion, and it is such an important skill set to become more and more aware, more sensitive, and more attuned to people's energy and what really resonates with them, because we can go a lot further with them. What are your thoughts about these things?
Yeah, great thoughts, Peyton. It's also hinting to the possibility to, if you have the ability to be empathetic, if you have the ability to really see what could be valuable for the other person, then you also see how you could create wealth with together with the other person. And then it's also some kind of a moral duty to really propose a win-win-win situation for them. If you really see, this is my skill set, these are my merits, and you see, this could really help their productivity, or this could really help them in having a better life, and you offer them and you share the risk and say, okay, if it doesn't change what your output is, then it will be for free. But if it changes, then I want to have a cut for you. And so you can like step into this wealth creation game, this positive sum game, if you really benefit each other. And this is kind of also a good way to think about it. Sometimes it's your moral duty to appeal to self-interest, to persuade, so that the positive sum game can be played. And you mentioned prestige, and what came to mind was Paul Graham's quote that you really have to watch out, because prestige can be a powerful magnet which wraps around your belief about what you could enjoy or what you would like to enjoy. So sometimes you need prestige in a job to draw the people in, because in itself it is not as rewarding as other jobs with the same amount of financial payoff. So you need the prestige component to really make the system work. And there's so many characteristics that can be seen in playing out, in playing this out. So a soldier, like you mentioned, has the prestige that the soldiers are the ones who are like Atlas shrugged, and underneath the motherland, and their fights and their blood kept the borders safe, and they kept the society secure. So they are the unsung heroes, or even the sung heroes of society. And so you have this prestige component motivating the people who are special in that regard, and who sometimes can turn their specific suffering into something meaningful to them. And I don't judge. It can be, you can always feel that way. But the important is that you find out for yourself what are your merits, what is the thing I can offer, and how can I convey the message in a more persuasive way. How can I convey the message which I really believe is valuable to me, to other people, to people who I deal with, and also to society? How can I make it be a self-runner? Like, how can I make it work? In that regard, empathy is a really good goal to have and to improve. Because if we understand other people better, then I guess the world can become a better place faster.
Yeah. And the last note I have on this is the nature of energy in this whole dynamic. I've found many times that the energy you bring to persuasion, to an interaction, to your attempts to resonate with the emotions and self-interest of other people actually makes a huge difference in how they feel and how they respond. And this is something that's not obviously an esoteric truth. We often see this and know this and see that Steve Jobs as a leader got much different results than Joe Schmo as a leader. He was able to push people far further, to do far more things, to be exceptional and overachieve. And great leaders are like this, whether it's military leaders, whether it's business builders, whether it's whatever, even some very skilled politicians they have a certain energy and magnetism and resonance and presence. And this too is a major factor in people's decision making. We are emotional creatures. We feel this person in front of us. We feel whether or not they have a power within them, a spirit, a presence, a way of being that inspires us. And this too is whether we're persuading for just trying to get somebody to agree with us, whether we are trying to lead people, whether we're trying to sell, no matter what we are trying to persuade, the energy and way of being that we bring into this actually has a huge impact in the degree to which our appeals to self-interest, our appeals to emotion, our appeals to how an action will make somebody feel. This makes a major difference as well. And this is something that we can cultivate within ourselves. We can pay attention. We can be aware and sensitive to the energy of other people and the way that our energy is rubbing off. And this is also an important meta skill for us to bring to these things. So, wonderful conversation, man. Very important topic, something that all of us are very wise to try to get better at over time. And it's something that we're good, we're bad, we learn, and bringing in awareness and a sensitivity to what's working, what's not working can enable us to continually refine this skill set. And by doing so, find ourselves more aligned, more in flow, and more in harmony with the people around us in our lives and able to benefit others as well as ourselves.
Yeah, thank you. Great thoughts, Peyton. May we train to be more empathetic next week, and may we learn to bring good energy and always appeal to win-win-win situations. Have a great week, man. Appreciate you.
Have a great week, brother. Good talking to you.